Distinguished guests, fellow chiefs, industry partners, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for supporting our Global Air and Space Chiefs Conference, and thank you, Cruiser, for joining me here on stage for the final double act of the event. As I suggested yesterday, we gather here at a moment when the international order faces its most severe test in generations. The illusion of a peaceful, permissive global commons has been shattered. State-based, high-intensity competition has returned with absolute clarity. The geography of a conflict is expanding from Europe to the Middle East, into the Pacific, into space, into cyber, and it's all interconnected, demanding a response that is agile, integrated, and ready. Advanced technology proliferated across the globe has now democratized lethality and tempo, and this should concern everyone in this room. It definitely feels to me like a storm is brewing, and that storm is very much heading our way. Yet amidst this brewing storm, one strategic maxim remains immutable. Control of the air and now space is the absolute prerequisite for military success. It is, in fact, the integrated forces' foundational shield and the ultimate enabler of joint operations. This truth is not new. It was forged in the fires of the 20th century, with Monty himself famously observing, if we lose the war in the air, we lose the war, and we lose it quickly. This, as many know, is every pilot's favorite quote, especially when our army colleagues are in the room. Monty intimately understood that land armies are paralyzed without the top cover we in the air and space domain provide. Air supremacy is the baseline from which all other options flow. Even Winston Churchill echoed this sentiment with stark urgency just before the dawn of the nuclear age, when he said, "Air power is the most difficult of all forms of military force to measure, but it is the supreme expression of military power." But enough of history. We do not need to look to history to prove these points. We only need to look east to Ukraine. The war in Ukraine provides a sobering case study of mutual air denial. Neither side has been able to achieve enduring control of the air, and the result, as we all know, is a brutal, grinding, attritional conflict reminiscent of the First World War. Armor is destroyed by low-cost drones, artillery and drone attacks dominate, humans migrate underground, and progress is measured in just mere meters. If we cannot achieve air superiority, we will be forced into such a meat grinder. And this means a price in blood and treasure that would be severely costly on both counts. Conversely, the recent US-Israel-Iran war demonstrates the overwhelming lethality of air power when unleashed at scale. The opening phases of this conflict, orchestrated under Operation Epic Fury, saw air power execute nearly 900 strikes in a single 12-hour window, systematically dismantling integrated air defense networks and strategic command infrastructure. And this campaign has proved that achieving localized, time-bound air supremacy, even against very dense threats, is still possible. It does, however, require flawless intelligence, the right mass of the right capability, and absolute synchronization. The Iran conflict has also exposed the opposite side to that coin, the saturation and sheer weight of modern retaliatory attacks. Air forces had to intercept a torrent of hundreds of ballistic missiles and thousands of attack drones. More Patriots were fired in the first few days of this campaign than during the last 4.5 years in Ukraine. This is a sobering reminder of the importance of magazine depth, even in a short war. This tested the limits of integrated air and missile defense systems, and it has proved that control of the air is an active, exhausting defensive battle. And the role of space in this modern battle has now become non-negotiable. It proved that whilst we must shield our territory, we must also simultaneously be ready to project offensive power, once more proving that on many occasions, to use the US maxim, offense is the best form of defense. To meet these evolving threats and to ready ourselves for the impending storm, the Royal Air Force is now updating its blueprint for the future by refreshing our approach to space and completely resetting our combat air strategy. This directly answers the twin challenges of both mass and sophistication, and it ensures that the Royal Air Force will maintain an unbroken combat edge through the next coming decades, transitioning us away from legacy models to an integrated software and AI-driven force, as discussed earlier by the Minister. This is a clear pathway towards the Royal Air Force becoming Europe's first sixth-generation Air Force. From a combat air perspective, this strategy builds on a robust, modernized front line, exploiting a high-low mix of integrated crewed and uncrewed systems. And we're already aggressively investing in an upgraded Typhoon fleet with advanced radar and a next-generation weapon integration. Typhoon remains a beyond fourth-generation powerhouse. Simultaneously, we're expanding our fifth-generation fleet by introducing more F-35 Lightning aircraft to include the F-35A, which we talked about yesterday, and its associated nuclear dual capability role, and its increased deep precision strike capability. The combination of F-35 stealth and sensor fusion and Typhoon mass gives us immediate lethal entry into highly contested environments. That all said, though, we know that crewed platforms alone are no longer enough to handle a complex and saturated battle space. So our refreshed strategy now accelerates the introduction of collaborative combat air platforms, or CCAs, a key part of our sixth-gen future combat air system, alongside the crewed element of GCAP. And these uncrewed autonomous fighter jets will operate alongside our crewed capabilities, providing AI brains that fly as an integrated combat air package. CCAs will provide the affordable mass, the sensor dispersion, and weapons carriage that we urgently need in our Air Force today. And with increased combat range alongside equivalent payload and similar stealth properties, they offer an exponential leap in combat edge. As announced this morning by Minister Pollard, CCAs are no longer something of the future. They are very much today's business. And our new Stormfighter CCA program will markedly shift the economic calculus back in our favor, absorbing risk and enabling our crewed platforms to more readily survive. And when augmented with other lower-end autonomous combat platforms, such as our world-beating Storm Shroud, as shown here and public revealed last year, I can announce today that we will be also launching other new systems. The new Storm Chrome electronic warfare drone and the Royal Air Force Regiment's new 1,000-mile one-way attack drone, the Storm Fire. We present a powerful compendium of control of the air capabilities as we step into a new decade, all integrated via the UK's new digital targeting web, as we discussed yesterday on stage with the other chiefs. And of course, we aspire to spiral and expand at pace our new Storm series of capabilities to remain ahead of the adversary and stay lockstep with today's and tomorrow's rapid technology development. This integrated system of Typhoons, F-35s, and autonomous capabilities is not just an endpoint. It is our deliberate stepping stone pathway, particularly through the next decade, towards laying the groundwork for the Global Combat Aircraft Program, or GCAP. Our work today directly matures the technologies, the digital engineering frameworks, the human-machine teaming required for this sixth-generation fighter system. Together with our international partners in Japan and Italy, GCAP will deliver absolute air dominance well into the second half of this century. So yes, a storm may be coming, but with this strategy in place and our pathway set to become Europe's first sixth-generation Air Force, we are well set to weather this storm and indeed create a storm all of our own if required. And whilst for the last 100 years, our air forces have owned the high ground, today that ultimate high ground is space. And of course, space is fundamental to modern daily life, our economic stability, and the interconnectedness of everything we do. But more than this, and through the lens of air power, it has become part of our very DNA. Control of the air no longer begins in Block 4 at Mach 1.5. It begins in space. Without space, our most advanced capabilities are effectively flying blind, they're deaf, and they are isolated. Space is the invisible, irreplaceable nervous system of contemporary air combat. Our modern-day quest for air superiority relies on precision and connectivity. Control of the air is sustained by satellite-guided munitions, secure beyond line-of-sight SATCOM, and instantaneous data links. So if space is denied, the integrated force is desynchronized. If space is denied, situational awareness links are completely severed. If space is denied, decision-making advantage is destroyed. So put simply, you cannot win the war in the air if you have already lost the war in space. So securing the space domain is the absolute prerequisite for projected air power. But more importantly, it underpins the very success of our ambition to fight within a truly integrated force construct. If we wish to control the skies, we obviously must first master the cosmos. So against this backdrop, as lead command for space, we will build on the solid foundation laid by UK Space Command over this last 5 years since its inception. We will reset our defence space strategy with a prime focus to space control, enabled by the establishment of 6 new space squadrons and a new additional space defence centre, and the creation of our first ever Techniques, Applications and Processes Laboratory, or a TAP Lab, delivered in partnership with our civil space colleagues with a personal ambition to see this located right in the heart of UK's world-leading space cluster, located here at Harwell in Oxfordshire, sitting right alongside over 100 space companies, the European Space Agency, the UK Space Agency, and a plethora of space academia, placing our technicians and tacticians side by side, rapidly developing and delivering next-generation space capability, and doing this with pace, with agility, and with precision. These new initiatives, alongside our extant efforts in space domain awareness, space-based ISR, and SATCOM, continue to position UK defence as one of the leading space players in Europe. All of this ambition, in turn, is backed by the hard currency of our new defence investment plan, and I'll not run through the numbers because the Minister eloquently covered that earlier. But the DIP does provide a multi-year strategic financial framework that aligns our resources directly with our threats. For our Air Force, the DIP provides industry partners with a clear long-term demand signal, from upgrading extant air systems like Typhoon well into the 2040s to rapidly developing a new CCA program. And this allows companies to invest confidently in advanced manufacturing, high-skilled jobs, and frontier technologies. Whilst in parallel, our ring-fence budgets for defence innovation will ensure that we can scale AI and autonomous tech right from the laboratory to the cockpits. But frontline capability is nothing without industrial depth. So to support this vision, the UK has enacted a transformative defence industrial strategy, and this strategy explicitly treats the UK defence industry as an engine for national economic growth, and importantly for this audience, underpins warfighting readiness. Indeed, if delivered effectively, it becomes an absolute cornerstone of our deterrence posture. We are moving away from passive procurement to innovating at a wartime pace, and we've talked about that here. Ukraine teaches us the need for this. Yes, transformation is very important, but transformation at pace is critical. Our recent integration of APKWS onto Typhoon, from design to fielding on combat operations in only 42 days, is testament to such an approach. And by prioritizing UK-based industry, we ensure our supply chains are resilient against global shocks and contribute directly to the prosperity of the nation. For example, industrial benefits in UK from the F-35 programme have outweighed the government investment to date by a ratio of 2 to 1. The Typhoon programme currently generates 19,000 jobs across this country and has contributed circa £20 billion to the UK economy. And looking forward, as we accelerate with the new Stormfighter programme, we anticipate that we can compete in a £125 billion market with thousands of additional high-end jobs across the breadth of the UK as we bring in a very broad range of new and exciting small and medium enterprises. So yes, the DIS guarantees that when we fight for control of the air and space, we are backed by a secure and sovereign industrial baseline. And of course, in this new era, no single nation possesses the capacity to secure the skies alone, and I was heartened that this was the thrust of Cruiser's speech. Our alliances must evolve beyond basic interoperability. We must strive for complete interchangeability across our forces. Our sensors, our platforms, our weapons must bind together into a single, seamless kill web. Allied data sharing must happen at the speed of relevance, not the lethargic speed of bureaucracy. Our alliances are our superpower. They are envied and feared by our adversary in equal measure. So to this end, they must be nurtured, they must be deepened and broadened, more so now than ever before. Whilst in parallel, we must pivot into technology with equal vigor, urgently exploiting next-generation capabilities from human-machine teaming and autonomous collaborative platforms, all the way through to what we're seeing with digital tools. These technologies will provide the combat edge and the affordable mass that we all desperately need. We must integrate artificial intelligence quickly to accelerate our next-generation OODA loop. In fact, we must use AI now to move beyond the systemic process of simply stepping through 4 distinct phases of a loop to simultaneous algorithmic sense-making and instantaneous execution. We must out-innovate, outpace, out-adapt, and out-decide our adversaries. Fellow chiefs, our primary responsibility to our respective nations and our common alliances is clear. We must ensure our joint forces are never subjected to the horrors of fighting without control of the high ground, without space and air control. We must continually educate on this non-negotiable strategic prerequisite. Ground forces, maritime fleets, and critical national infrastructure depend entirely upon our success. And as I look out across this audience, I see my friends, I see my partners, and I see my allies. I see the people that I may have to fight alongside in the very near future. Many of you have traveled long distances to get here, so let us not waste this opportunity with polite discussion. Let this conference be the catalyst for bolder debate, deeper integration, faster acquisition, and braver innovation. A century ago, this chap, the Italian general, Julio Douhet, the pioneering air power strategist, set us this challenge. To command the air means to be in a position to prevent the enemy from flying while retaining the ability to fly oneself. History has given us the warnings. Current conflicts have provided the enduring proof. We must now accelerate into the new dawn of air and space power. Our mission today is to maintain command of both domains, as Dewey so eloquently described those many years ago, but now in a vastly more complex and contested world. But when we secure the skies and space, we secure that which is most precious to us, our very freedom. And in today's dangerous and volatile world, this has never been more important. Thank you very much.